Hi everybody, Rory Townsend here. In this show and tell, I actually wanted to go across a question that I've been asking myself for quite a while, as to if I had to start working with SketchUp now and needed to get a render engine. Now, most of the render engines for SketchUp are purchased render engines. And I was thinking that we've got Unreal Engine that has full render capabilities and everything, but I'm not sure people see that as a render engine that they could use SketchUp for the modeling and just take it to Unreal and use that as their render engine, because often when they go to Unreal Engine, the complexity kind of turns them off and they think, okay, let me just get a one sort of click solution in SketchUp. And I must say that, I mean, the renders in SketchUp using different plugins are brilliant. I don't have a problem with you going that route, but sometimes you might have people who have SketchUp who don't have, for example, in my case, I have Thea Renderer, which I simply love using as a in SketchUp sort of integrated SketchUp render engine when I want to do sort of single visuals and quick renders, and it does phenomenally high quality renders. But for those people who don't want to invest in a plugin that's going to cost you $300-400 or so, you have the option of going straight to Unreal Engine as your render engine. Like in a few previous sessions that I showed, a few videos that I did, I explained the process of designing and how to texture to make sure that your textures and your UV maps all go correctly over to Unreal. But I'm going to assume that you've done all due diligence and made sure that your models are all cleaned up. In this case here, I'll just show you that I've done a model that is basically all in one. Now I've got real weird textures on here, but it's just for, let me just move this thing a bit more out of the way. I'm going to put it another 5 meters. Okay, so often when I move a single group away in a direction just to make space, some people will hide it or put it on layers. I try and keep life simple. I move it up, for example, and type in 10 meters. So I know when I move it back, I just type, start moving it in the direction down and type 10 and it will block into the same space. So what I did is just did a model with extruding all walls. So the entire thing is one group. So if I explode this, it's all in one model. And the reason I did that was because I wanted to keep the model simple when I took it into Unreal. And also Unreal will detect each of these materials as independent, although it's one model. So I'm able then to change the individual textures. So I've textured each sort of surface that I want to be able to edit in Unreal. So let's assume that this is a model that you're now wanting to render and show a client. The big plus of taking it into Unreal Engine is that when you create the visual render, you can render it as a high resolution image based on your positioning of your camera, but also you immediately, when you process it, you have the ability to have a walk through the place and have that as a norm for Unreal Engine. Whereas if you're using a plugin like this one, Thea Renderer or V-Ray or any of those in SketchUp, you basically have to render one scene, wait for 5-10 minutes or however long your quality is going to be. And then when you start moving the camera, it restarts the render again. So I'm going to just show you a specific view inside the model using the sunlight outside. Now, let's accept that, you know, my settings are all not optimal for purposes of lighting and all that, but I hope you're going to see the key in what I'm showing, the ability for you to transition from SketchUp and go do the full render and not need to invest in a render plugin inside SketchUp if you don't have the money to do so. So most of you would have SketchUp, and Unreal Engine is a free of charge for guys who use it at the level that I use it at. If you're going to use Unreal for major gaming, that's another story. I cannot help you in that space because I don't know much about the gaming side of it. Okay, so let's see now. I'm going to drop this roof down. Yeah, again, I've moved it 10 up, so I move it in the direction and I'll let go and I type in 10 meters And there we go. Now I've created a scene to take me inside the building into a specific position. I think it's scene number 3 that's going to take me. Okay, so we're in this room, and this is the room that I'm going to kind of generate in Unreal Engine also, then we can see what's going on. Before I move to Unreal, I'm just going to show you that what the Thea render gives me here. Now, again, I'm going to reiterate that, I mean, we can put in materials, proper lighting, everything. You're going to create even better renders. But the key here is just saying, this is the kind of look and feel that you get with a rough setup. And if you do a particularly rough setup in Unreal, what the look and feel you can get, which is basically the whole idea is to show you that you can get sort of equal render quality based on a simple setup. If you spend more time and you start to put energy behind it, of course, you're going to start getting the thing to look more photorealistic and so forth. Okay, so I'm putting my Thea render. I'm choosing what we call it's an interactive render Presto engine. This gives us sort of built-in ambient occlusion. Because I don't have internal lights, I want to create a bit of ambient light that's going to come in. And then, of course, I set my camera, my ISOs and shutter speeds and f-stop of my camera to optimize the view of the inside. But I've done a few settings over here, which are basic ones. And then I'm going to click render. And let's just see what we come up with. Okay, so let me just move this, minimize this. So that's pretty much what we're starting a render with. If you look at the bottom here, I'm on 38 samples per pixel. I think that's what it means, S by px. But usually when you get to 300-400, then you add the proper sort of visual element that you're working with. And now this is all in SketchUp with the render. What I've done is I've just taken the SketchUp materials and told Thea Render to add a few qualities to it. So the floor, while it's busy rendering now to about 300, I'll just explain that the floor I've made to be a basic plastic texture. Now you have the ability in Thea to go and work in the Thea material editor, which is very advanced. But when we're talking about simple click-through, I've made it a plastic and I've added a bit of roughness to it, so it doesn't have a total glossiness. It's got sort of a little bit of shine to it as such. Once again, you can sit and spend time, even with the wall, the brick wall I've got there, you can create displacement and bump maps and all that sort of stuff. So you can do that. Yeah, you can do it in Unreal all over. We're looking at the basic setup. So this is the image that I've come to now at about 300, which is pretty much where you're going to get to if you're working with it. Now, here's the challenge. I can have this picture and then push it out to a client, or even here, if I want to go, I can, let me just go in. I'm going to just set the camera setting maybe to shutter speed of maybe 60, just to have a bit more light into the scene. And you can see there it pulls in a little bit more light. So this looks great. I mean, we have to say it's, you know, with a bit of tweaking, etc., you can add the realism with it. So for $400, you can start moving in this direction. But here's where the big challenge comes in. When I start to move the camera a little bit, wait, let me just not even do that. I'm going to move the camera now. Basically it starts from over and starts to re-render. So this is still very fast compared to a lot of plugins. Thea Render works brilliantly fast with this engine, the what's it called, a Presto engine. It's rendering in real time in the SketchUp window when we're moving around. So now it's on 78 going up, and the more complicated the scene, of course, how longer it will take. But this is pretty much what we're dealing with here now. If I want to show a client what the other side of the room, I'll have to turn around, sort of visualize it wherever I'm going, or stop the render, and then when I'm done, I can then start the renderer up again and then wait for it to show. So I don't have the ability to have real-time walkthroughs with the thing, because each area, when I stop, it has to do its render, shoot its render. It doesn't work with any light maps or baking any sort of images and textures in. Okay, So this is what you have, and you can spend a lot of time and set up nice visuals, but it's basically single images you're creating. If you want to create an animation, a walkthrough or fly through, you're basically going to spend minimum of 5 to 10 minutes per actual image, and if you put 30 of them together, it's 30 times 5, it's what's that, 150 minutes just for 1 second of video, which is quite a stretch. So let me just move it back to the scene so that we can see what the reference image is going to be like. So just so you recall, that's what we were working with. Okay, and we will reference it later again. I'm going to stop the render now. Now I'm going to take this exact model out to, I'm going to just create a folder here. So when I opened it up, I just opened up the basic sort of interface with no other materials or anything with it. It comes in with this atmospheric floor, you know, the usuals that come in. So I'm just opening up the standard, no other first person issues or anything like that, just the standard basic default open. Then I'm going to create a folder. I'm going to call that, let's call this, oops, where I made it disappear. I should get involved with magic sometime. My sketch up. Okay, and I'm going to import into that. I'm going to import, what I did with that model, I exported it as a OBJ and FBX into, I actually am going to work with the OBJ now. I kind of prefer working with the OBJ than the FBX, although Unreal will pull an OBJ in and basically convert it to a FBX on its own. But I've got, I exported it as OBJ and with textures, and the textures would go in there into the other folder. So we say open. And here, as per usual, I'll just run through it if people aren't familiar. If you click this Show Advanced here, what is important is you generate light maps when you import, because SketchUp creates a light map, not a light map, a UV map, but you need a second UV map for Unreal to work with. So when you import, if this button is checked, by default it is checked, it will create a second UV map, which is important. Okay, and just make sure that combine meshes is off here, because you want to bring them in the groups that you created in SketchUp. And of course, import materials and import textures have got to be checked. Then click import all. Now remember, I basically grouped the entire model together except the roof. So the roof and the actual part of the model, those are the two independent units. So okay, what happened here? Oh no, I must have brought in the wrong model. My apologies. Okay, let's go and just delete that. Where did I get that particular model? Let me go import. Oh, this is box. You know, my apology. I was explaining about this being the model, and that's where the textures are, but it's actually in that folder. There's my SketchUp OBJ, and there's where the textures are. My apology. Sorry for that. Okay, I won't go through the explanation again. It's by default, all the things are fine. We're going to import. So we should be sitting with a model with textures, and it should have, okay, these are just saying that we need to export it with smooth and all that sort of stuff. You can ignore that. When we bring it in, we've basically got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. These 5 parts of the model that we're going to grab, and I'm just going to place it over here. And when I let go, of course, it shows me all the parts of the model there. So the meshes that we brought in here, although I've grouped them into the way that I expressed, the meshes that came in, there's 5 meshes. So before I click on anything, they are automatically still selected. I go to the top corner, click Create Folder, then all of these will fall into that folder. And I'll call this my SketchUp models. Okay, so they all automatically fall in there. The floor, I'm going to just select it and press delete. I want to remove that out of the equation because this model is quite a bit big. Now, just one thing again, I go through it in almost every of the videos I do. When I start to navigate, my mouse moves in totally different directions. I'm used to using basically Cinema 4D or the Maya, Autodesk Maya navigation features, which is Alt and left mouse and that sort of thing. So I basically go to Edit Preferences. Now you don't have to do this if you're comfortable with navigating around, okay? Then I go to Viewport and I just flip these to Invert Mouse Pan and Inverse Mouse Look Y-axis. Okay, close that. And then second one I go to is the Project Settings. And the reason I come to Project Settings is because it's set on automatically doing auto exposure. So if you go into a dark room, the room will become a little bit lighter, almost like your eye adapts to light. When you go into a dark room, your eye starts to adapt. But I don't want it to do that because I want to control the amount of light that's in a environment. So I scroll down to Render. Let's see, where's Render? Rendering. And then I scroll down, there's a section here under default settings and it says auto exposure. So I just want to disable that one. That's just my preference. Close that, and we are sitting now with this box. The light here is, if I go around, I can't see where the door is that we've created because the light is positioned a bit differently. So what I'm going to do is just get the light, and with the light I'm going to basically press the E key, which gives me this rotate. I'll rotate it and just twist this in this axis. We'll bring the light around. There we go. There I can see the window, and the door must be on the left. So let me just bring it further around. There we go. Okay, and if we look through the door there, based on the other model that we were working on, we had the light coming through the door, angling sort of, if we look at it there, it was angling to the side of the window, which is here on this side. So I'm going to try and just get the sun to do exactly the same there. Okay, that should be fine, and maybe tilt it a bit. There we go. But we'll see from inside the room now. Okay, so we've got the light source there. Now I'm going to go inside the room. I'm going to scroll my mouse button, and I'm going to go in the room and then kind of rotate around. Now your navigation, you've got to kind of work that out. Like I said, I choose the other Maya settings and so forth. So by assumption here, I'm going to go and move about to this section here. Now based on what we saw in SketchUp, the window, the sort of door was here and the window was on the side here. But I can't see much here because as for those people who don't know, what happens is if you're building inside Unreal Engine and you're building with what they call sort of static lights or static models and so forth, you click a build and then it renders it and it bakes all the different textures and that onto the model, and then you are able to see all the lights and shadows that come on it. So we haven't yet added certain bakes into it. We haven't rendered it. We haven't sent it for a sort of a, if you can call it, a light revision to see what is going on. But I want to show you some other things that I do for my particular models. Now if you're doing gaming, then making the light maps and you know, baking the stuff for when you're playing the game, that everything is fixed in there, is essential, because you have a lot of different levels and a great amount of graphics happening and memory being used. But for purposes of what I use it for like a visual, like an architectural visualization or a concept visualization. I don't need to constantly be baking the things into the model. What I do is, and this is what I'm going to show you, and it will help you to feel that your movement from like SketchUp with your render engine into this space is almost a bit seamless, that you don't have to now click and run it so that you can now see the light having a different effect. I'm trying to set it up in such a way that when you're navigating through your model, you're going to be able to see the effects immediately. You don't have to keep doing the rebuilding of the scene as such. So how do I get to do that? First thing is that my light from outside, if I look here in the right hand side, my light from outside if I go down into the details panel, let's go here into the details panel, you'll see that the first thing is that my light is set up on static, which means that it's staying there. So the computer wants to, the gaming engine wants to work out how this light is going to affect the scene. So if it's standing there, I've got to generate the build. If I move the light again, it's going to generate how the light bounces around. But if I say this light is going to be movable, it changes the way the scene reacts to it. So first thing you've got to do when you're bringing in your model in, and you want this to just be the render engine for your SketchUp, you've got to say, okay, I've got my light, outside light, which is the light source there, which is acting as the sunlight. You're going to basically go and switch from static to movable. And you'll see this preview areas here will disappear. There we go. And it's disappeared now. Okay, so now you're basically seeing what the light has as an effect there. When you scroll down now, you go and look at the other features. You can change the color of the light, etc., and the intensity if I make the lights brighter or less bright. What you can do is click on default here, which is by 10, and you'll see that's the sunlight coming in. Now you notice that there's no sort of ambient light that's coming in here. That light is created by another sort of acid that we bring in here. I don't know if the word acid is correct, but there's like you have a light, point light that you drag into a scene. We've got to use another thing, and I'll tell you what that is in a moment. But at the moment now, you have just the sun shining through in the light. Now, here's the one thing that is going to help. In SketchUp, you have the ability to create a scene, and then when you want to see the object from that scene, you just click on the scene. In Unreal Engine, what will help is to create just a temporary camera position. So how do you do that? You press Control and a number. So I'm going to go now Control and number 1, and that's going to give me this position. So now if I move the camera around and turn it maybe a bit to this area, I know it is a bit dark here, but if I turn it to this area and I go Control 2, and then I move outside of this object, and say I come as far as this here, and I say Control 3. So now I've created 3 positions. Now all I have to do is to press the number 1, not the control, but just the number 1. And then I'm inside. Number 3, I'll be outside. Okay, number 1, I think I made a bit of a mistake. I didn't initiate it properly. Let me just do that again properly. I think I was on something else. So we're going to go into approximately that position. And here where my cursor is, that's where the window is, but we're not having any response because I haven't set a few of the other settings. So we're going to press Control and 1. So if I go 2 now, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so that's just your how to get a camera position. So when you're editing, you don't have to now kind of find your way around. Those are kind of your scenes that you do. Okay, so let's assume that we're happy with the sunlight there. What would be the next thing that we need to do? And this is probably the most important key for creating ambient light inside, or like global kind of illumination inside your building. That would be to go to lights, and it's this thing called the skylight. Okay, so you take the skylight and you drag it into your scene, and there we go. Okay, isn't that smart? Now we've created a skylight in the area, and this is sort of the, if you can call it, the global illumination in the area. So here we have in the world outliner, you see your skylight, and now there's also certain keys that we're going to edit in the details of the skylight. So let's just move this down. Let me just see if we can move here. Okay, so we're going to scroll now. We're looking at, again, starting with the skylight. You see this one is also on static. Maybe we should just read this so that you can get the explanation. A static light will only have its shadow and bouncing light from a static geometry baked by light mass. So you've got to do the bake. All other lighting will be dynamic. It can change it can change color intensity in a game. It can't be moved. It allows partial baking, lighting, dynamic shadows from movable objects. Okay, so if we go to movable, see what that one will do. Movable lights can be moved. Oops, autosave. Okay, let's just wait for that to get done. Movable lights, I'm just hovering here and it gives the help. Movable lights can be moved and changed in the game, totally dynamic, whole scene dynamic shadows, but it's the slowest rendering. But we shouldn't be too worried about that if our scenes are not big. If you find that your scene is going to be big when you render it out for end use, then you could decide to change your lights to static and just make sure you bake them all in. But for my editing purposes, if I click here now, you're going to see I'm going to click there, and now it's movable, and basically the effects of the thing are going to be in real time. Okay, so those are the two that you set there now. And then there's another thing that is going to be important. If you scroll down, if you look at let's see with the now this thing is ducking and diving here for me. Am I on the right thing? I'm on Sky Sphere. I'm supposed to be on Sky. I was wondering why I'm seeing something different here. Okay, if you go down, if you're using a cube map, which is a image that radiates light to this area, then you could pump up the resolution here to 1024, and that would be able to improve the quality of the image. Here, intensity, you can push up the intensity to create the sort of lighting in the room as you require. So that's up to you. I'll just put it onto 2 for now. And then of course the light that's inside here if you change that, you could create it to different colors if you choose to do so. Okay, so you have that ability to let the ambient light inside be a tone of certain color. There's one area that is key over here. If we go and click down, let me just click it up again so you can see where it is. When you come to underneath the light and color and so forth, just above distance field ambient occlusion, this button, if you click down, show advanced. Now you see the ceiling here, although it's white, it's coming out as dark. To alter that, there is a button here, lower hemisphere. You can read that in your own time, but basically you can change the color of this, and it would have an effect on the room color as such. If you just work with the color, you could alter the color, and it will bring in. It's got to do with the light that bounces up. So if light comes down and it bounces up, that's the effect. When that button is basically, or this color is set, this low hemisphere color is set to a dark color, it shows dark towards the top. You could also uncheck this button, lower hemisphere, and automatically it will add the light in as it's coming into the area. But in this case now, it's so bright, you're going to have to tone down, for example, the intensity here. If we have to take it down maybe to 1. So between the intensity of the skylight and the actual lower hemisphere being checked, if you had to have it checked on and change the color here to maybe a different color, you'd be able to create the light from the lower area shooting up is going to be whatever this tone is. But I would say the safest place to be is to uncheck the lower, and it's giving a sort of a pure light from the actual skylight itself, and then you can tone it down here, maybe make it 0.45 in the room. This is the intensity of it. Okay, so it's important just to remember once again, the two things that you kind of focus on when you're working is the intensity of your skylight, and then also this area, this lower hemisphere. Just uncheck the lower hemisphere and rather deal with the normal light that is coming through, rather than working with the lowest hemisphere color and a light color of the actual skylight, because you're going to have two colors that are blending, and that gets a bit confusing. So those are probably the two key things to make the scene light up well, and especially the ceiling. Most people, when they're rendering, they find the ceiling goes dark, and it's because the renderer is not pumping up enough light into that area. Okay, now let's just get on to one or two other things. There's reflections that take place in this room, and Unreal works with the ability, because if you're in a gaming environment, the render engine can't at all times be doing 1,000,001 calculations. So you technically will put into the environment a sphere, a reflection sphere. If you go in here, let's see where it is, visual effects, sphere reflection, it basically captures all the reflections from different areas and then uses it to reflect against the different surfaces that you have in the game. But I'm not going to get into using that at the moment. I'll just keep it basic and simple here. There is another thing called a post-processing box. Now, if you don't know where it is, you could just basically click here under basic or here on top and just type post. It will bring it up, post-processing volume. Now, what that does, it basically gives you the ability to create a box around this whole area, and then you could put visual elements through. You could create a vignette of what you're seeing in that box. So anything in that box will have that visual element. So maybe I should just show you quickly. If we bring the post-processing volume in here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to just make this the size. I'm going to switch the lock on. So of this box, so what happens is when you as a player in the game or walking through, when you go into the box, whatever settings you have in the box, whether it's to see things blue or green, when you go into that box, then everything from that perspective, it's like looking through a specific camera into the rest of the room itself. They use this often in games when a guy dives into water. When he's in water, the things go all blurry and that sort of thing. So when they create water for the game player, they make a box like this, a post-processing box in the water, and put a whole lot of effects. So as the player goes into that box, he sees everything different. When he comes out, he moves into a different post-processing volume or a box area. But what we're doing is creating a post-processing volume around our whole model, which is this house. We're going to create it. So everything that is going to be affected by this post-processing volume will affect everything in the house, because we are in the box in the house all the time, if that makes sense. So I'm going to just go and I'm going to take this post-processing volume and just make it maybe, let's say 10 width, and then I'm going to go outside the, remember there's my quick key came in very helpful there. Now I pressed 3 and it took me right out. So I'm going to go to this post-processing volume, and where is it? Okay, here it is. Yeah, but it's kind of quite big. So what I'm going to do is just size it down so that it kind of comes just above the place, and maybe move it to the side. Let's see. Yeah. So basically what we are saying is everything in this box will be seen in the same way by the person in the box. So if I made inside the, let me show you here now. I'm going to just go to the post-processing. So I'm on post-processing. When I go look at the detail, you'll see here it says color grading, shadows, midtones, tone mapping. It goes bloom, lens effects, everything. Now I'm going to just show you something here that I'm going to do. I think we can call, I think it's vignette. Post-processing. Okay, you're going to help me here to see if I can see vignette somewhere. Okay. Okay, maybe I'm going to do tint, and I'm going to do some serious tint into red. Okay, so at the moment now, this is saying that if we're inside there, we should, I think, see it as red. But on the outside here, we're seeing nothing. So I'm going to press 1 on the camera, and we're going to go inside. Okay, and we should see that. If it doesn't, then I'm the wrong person to teach you about, let's see, post-processing, white balance, tint. There we go. So there we've got that strange tint, and then I'm going to just do I'm going to do some sort of radical, okay, that's didn't work there. Saturation, okay, that doesn't work. I'm not too sure what that is. Image effects, vignette. Okay, let's go vignette. Can you see this vignette on the side? So if I go now and I go, say, outside the building, can you see it's clear outside? There's no vignette. When I go inside, everything inside looks like this green, but when I move outside, it doesn't seem green. Now if I move closer, and on top here, can you see as I move into this box, it turns, even outside it turns into those colors. Okay, so hopefully that explains. So you could make a thing that you could create this post-processing volume in different rooms in the house. So you could go into the room and say you're going to go into the next room. As you enter the next room, maybe you want to create a nice warm feeling. You can create a box, a post-processing volume there that's got a more yellowy effect. So as the person walks through, when they cross into the next box, it turns yellow into that area. So that's the kind of idea with the post-processing. You can create different moods, different environments based on almost all of these effects, and it can be contained in a box as such. Okay, but in this case now I am going to remove post-processing because I'm not going to use that. That was just to explain. Let me press, was it 1 or 2? 1, yeah. That was just to explain if you needed to have post-processing, kind of effects with it. There's some brilliant post-processing effects. You can fiddle around with that. So the other thing is just that I want to sort of round off on the settings over here is a thing called light mass importance. I know these names are rather, strange, but anyhow, you'll get used to them. Light mass importance volume. What this is also a box, and I'm going to just go to details and make this box say 10 by 10. Let me go outside, see where that box is. Okay, what this box, oops, what am I doing? Light mass importance. Okay. What this box is doing is basically saying that when the program is going to render any light, things related to lighting in this area, because the calculations of lights bouncing off goes outside this particular model we're working with, and it almost run to infinity into the sky and then bounce back all the way, whereas you just need the actual calculations to happen within the environment you're working, which is the light needs to just bounce as far as the environment you are in, so you don't want to waste all the processing power and the energy of the kind of calculations and that to go almost to infinity and then feedback right to the small model. So you're basically putting a box around your section that you are rendering and saying, look here, this is the area, the important volume that I'm working on or calculating on. Now, I don't know if this is of relevance when you're running your lighting and rendering things kind of in real time, but I would guess it is. I have to still do a bit of research on that. But bottom line is now we have a section. Let me just press 1 and we're back in the room. And basically what we're saying to the area is that when we click build, don't go to infinity to calculate all the photons calculation and bouncing. Just go as far as this box goes for this particular render. Okay, so we've got that going. What I think I need to do, to be fair also, is to add a bit of materials properties onto these areas, because I know in the other model that we looked at in SketchUp there was reflectivity and all that sort of stuff. Just another nice thing, if I go outside here now and if I go to Sky Sphere is this dome around. If you look carefully, you'll see all the clouds are gently moving. And you can actually go down and you can say how bright the sun must be. Okay, what did I do and push it on default? I fiddled with something there now. But anyhow, you can say how the cloud speed, how fast the clouds must move. Put it back to default. Cloud opacity. Can you see you can make the clouds appear more sort of thick in the area? Yeah, sun height, all of these things. But yeah, basically what I wanted to show you is just the ability to set the clouds, the speed of the clouds moving past. It's kind of very cool. And this is something you can't do in SketchUp, of course. Okay, let's get back into the room. And I'm going to just quickly round off with showing you the adding a bit of material properties over here on the floor, etc. Okay, so I've shown it in other videos, but I think it's worth just showing how to create a material and then create an instance of that material to work with. So what we're going to do is we've got this material on the floor. Now, if I click on the floor here now, because the model is all created in one, I have one model that it accesses. If we look on the right here, that's one full model. And I've now got to go through the materials to see which materials are actually relevant. That's why probably it's good in SketchUp to actually name your materials, like the floor would be floor, so that it's easy to identify it here. But basically in this case, I'm going to have to do a bit of guesstimate. Let's just go and see which one would be the floor. If I click here. Okay, I've been a bit naughty by not naming it, but I assume it's this one, slate here. So I'm going to just take this one and drop it on here. Oops, it's not. But let's leave that one there and let's use that one now as the floor. Okay, I'm not going to search for that one. That's what I'm saying. It's just important to name it in SketchUp, so when you search for it over here, you can find the actual name. I'm sure if I look more, I'll be able to find it. But let's open up Slate, double click on it. Okay, and this is what I did in the other sessions also, and it's worthwhile repeating. I'm not going to go slow over it. I'm going to just jump through it, and you can check it in the other videos. So basically, there's 3 buttons that you remember here when you're wanting to create the texture, something that you can manage the texture from an instance outside. So the first thing I'm going to press is M for multiply. Okay, the next thing I'm going to press is S for a scalar value, which is a parameter. And then I'm going to press U, which is my shortcut key, and then left mouse button again for texture coordinate. So this I'm going to just rename texture. And I plug this in there, this in there, and this one in there. And then I'm going to press S again for another scalar value, which I'm going to call roughness. You can call it smoothness, whatever it is, but that's going to go into the roughness area. And this one, when I select on it on the left here, I'm going to make it starting off with, say, 0.5. And then the maximum slider value is going to be 1, okay, because we work from 0 to 1. The texture, I'm going to start off with it being 1, which will then take whatever the standard texture is and apply that. If it's small or big, it at least starts off from whatever the texture sizes we brought in. Okay, that's all we need to do under construction here, and then I'm going to save this. So this thing is called Slate. Okay. Okay, so there we go, and then I'm going to close this. So this is Slate over here. I'm going to right click on it and say create an instance. Okay, and here again, if this is confusing you, just check 1 or 2 of the other videos. I spend a little bit more time on it, and by default it will create the name of the file and the word instance, INST. So I take this now and I drop it onto the floor, which is the same material. It's a duplicate at the moment. I haven't altered it. But because it's an instance, when I double click on it, it brings this dialog window open, and I'm just going to size it down. Remember, I created 2 scalar values there. One was called, I named roughness, and the other one texture. So when I enable them now, like the texture, if I move the texture, you'll see the size change in real time there. Can you see that happening there? It's changing in real time on the floor over there. Okay, so I'm going to just click the reset it back to 1, which was the correct tile size, as you can see there. If I have to move it a little bit here, you'll see it sized differently. And that's the beauty of working with instances. You have basically instant feedback. If you were working with a material, you would have had to go into the material, change the texture, apply it, save it again, and it's a long procedure. So instances work great because you can create an instance of an instance and so forth. So at the moment, this roughness is, if we look at it there, it's a nice kind of shiny texture. Maybe want to make it more gloss, then all we do is we take it down, and there you can see we're taking it down to have a little bit more of a glossy look. Okay, I'm going to leave it at kind of overcompensate for the glossiness. But as you can see, that's the sun. Now yes, I mean, I'm not even processing it for final use yet, but as you can see, when you're going through already the interaction here, you're able to look around the room, see a bit of reflectivity, see light shining and so forth. And this is just in a preview section. So compared to what we have with SketchUp and the plugin or other programs that do static renders, you know, you get far ahead of the game. Now at the moment, this window here it's not glass. Now I'm not going to go look for, or maybe I shouldn't be lazy. I think it would be called glass. Okay, there we go. See, quite a bit lazy, but I found it quickly. Let's move this. Now with glass, the difference is here is you click off these areas. Don't be clicked onto any one of them. Click off them, and this dialog box here will pop up, and it says opaque, and it has to be translucent. Now there's Fresnel and all the other settings that you can set up to make things really looking like glass. But in our case, all we're saying is we've got a parameter here, which is the color of the glass. Let's call it color. And I spell it LOUR because I'm in South Africa. We haven't moved out of the British realm yet. Not that I want to spell like, you know, the COLOR like the Americans. I prefer my LOUR. But enough of that. I'm going to press Scalar S and left mouse button click, and then move it to opacity. Okay, and this I'm going to just call opacity also. Whoops. Yeah, I know some of you are saying, you see, you should have left the British, then you could spell better. But anyhow, we got opacity, and I'm going to start off with a default value of, say, 0.5. So that's, I think it goes up to 1. So from 0 to 1, 1 will be, I assume, fully opaque. 0, I don't know. We can check in the front end. Let me not worry about that. So I'm going to have the ability to create an instance of which I can change the opacity and instance of the color, because these are both parameters as such. Okay, if you had to create, for example, if you keep the one key down and you create, what do they call it, a constant, you could do the same into there, and then you right click on it and you say convert to parameter, then it will do the same like this here. But the quicker way to go is just, you know, just to press S, which is I think called a scalar value, and then press the left mouse button and it will go immediately into a parameter. Okay, press save. Let's close this. And all of this hard work for glass. Okay, but I hope that you're seeing the fact now that we're creating what we've created in SketchUp with Thea Render or with the other render engine. We're getting to that place. It might initially take a little bit of PT to, you know, get the things set up, the lighting and all that. But basically it might take me half an hour to explain all of this. But for me to get to this point now, it's going to take me 5 minutes, and I'm working on my own, because I'll just pull in stuff, size stuff, and so forth. So I've got the material here now, and the reason why it's only showing up as 1 is because I've still got the filter in there. So I'm going to right click on that and say create an instance of that material. Oh, that's nice. When I create the instance, it removes the filter. Okay, so this is the instance of the clear glass. I'm going to drop this on that window and then double click that, and it will open up the instance here. Okay, make the color maybe a bit of a bluish color. Let's see what we can get away with. Oh, that's a lot of blue. And opacity, let's try to 0, maybe. Yeah, maybe make it 0.25, so it's slightly. Okay, I don't know particularly, because can we see outside here? Yeah, we can see outside. Oops, where were we outside? Yeah, we can kind of see outside the window there now, so that has transparency. Okay, let me press my 1 again. Now what I'm going to just show you, if, besides setting up all the other parameters and getting the renders, everything else right, which is going to take a bit of time for you to get into it, and that's not the purpose of what I'm going to explain, what I'm explaining here. If you now at this stage want to do a build, you click on build here, and it will run through doing a couple of the textures, making sure that things are working together and so forth. And at this point now, because I've chosen my lightings to all be movable, I'm not knowledgeable enough to know that, the things, there's light maps that are baking and etc. happening now, or whether it's generated to happen in real time, because I've set the lights on as movable. So hopefully I'll get to know more about that, but for now I'm just doing the conventional of creating the build, and this is what you'd be sitting with. And if you want to show somebody what it looks like, you can render it out, of course, as a full standalone, or if you're in the software like this and you want to show somebody, it's basically using the full screen mode, which is F11. You can also access it if you click the pop down here, it will show you, and then pressing G to get into gaming mode. I'm just waiting for this to complete its render over here. Maybe I should, oh no, I don't need to pause it. I think it's going through it. Okay, so it's busy compiling all the shaders that are necessary for this render. Now here again, as we come to a close, what you'd be sitting with SketchUp and with Thea Render is basically an image like this, where you're seeing a section of the room. Okay, so now it's busy just reconstructing all of these textures. And remember, those people who, when it renders, that shows all the black spots, that's your UV map issues, and you can watch the other videos how to resolve that. But now it's busy recompiling all those shaders using the light settings that we had, and we can see what we're coming up with now. That light, what did I call it, post-processing volume, where we had the effects, the colors, and that when you move into that box, will be essential when you're working in this environment, because once it renders through, you might find this environment too light or too dark. So if you have that post-processing volume, you can change exposure and everything for the current visual element that you are in. Whereas at this point now, when it brings up, there's no ways unless you go turn lights down and all that sort of stuff. So your post-processing volume is actually like your camera, what your camera's seeing, what your settings through the camera is. And that will help a lot when you don't have to constantly rebuild your models. You basically just set your camera's visual of what you're moving through at the time. Okay, so we've got 381 shaders to go. Maybe I'll pause it, and when that is done, then I'll just show you how you can show the client immediately how we can look at the elements and walk through them. Okay, we finished with that render through. So if you were sitting now and we did a bit of a render for a client, and we don't want to push the thing, like I said, right out into an independent sort of walkthrough environment, and you're sitting with a client in the program like this, you could actually at this stage go and let the client look at it and say, okay, what the opinion is. Once again, if you want to change the kind of orange reflective look on top, those are all settings that we can do. I'm not here to get the perfect photorealistic look at this stage. That's going to take a bit of settings in the lighting settings, etc. But now if the client is here, basically there's two keys you can remember. The one is F11, and that will give you a full screen view, and you can press G, which is flips between the gaming mode and the non-gaming mode. If you're in the non-gaming mode, you see all of the little goody magads that are there, these little indicators of the different sort of assets that get put in. And you press G, they disappear, and you're able to work around. The other thing is also about pressing G is that you're able to use certain keys, the W keys and all that sort of stuff. Let me just check. I'm going to go back here and just see where we are. If we go there, if we're into, okay, if I go into G, into gaming mode, out of gaming mode. Okay. So let me just press F11. So say everything you were happy with. And the point is, if you look at the reflectivity and all that sort of stuff, they're actually quite brilliant in what they're looking at. And of course, it takes lots of different settings that you've got to do, etc. But basically, you're having now a kind of nice walkthrough with a person. They can look at the place. You can actually even go into the next room. Let's walk further through the place, go through the different rooms. Okay, so you have the ability now to navigate. I know these are terrible textures I've got in the walls and the floors and everything, but basically you see here the floor texture has the shine because we've edited the material. Those others don't there. So spending a little time will give you a nice feel around. And I mean, I'd be totally satisfied with a feature like this if I'm able to show somebody what the place looks like and actually be able to look around and they have a good feel compared to having a static image. But as I round up now, this is the last point that we can get to. Say you've got this here, and this viewpoint is what you like, and you want to give the person a similar single high resolution picture that you have from SketchUp. So if we look at SketchUp now, we're sitting with this environment, we do the render. So if I click render here, I'm going to get this set up. And of course, if you want the tones and the lighting and all that, you set it differently in Unreal Engine. I just did a click through. So from here now, you've got to sit and wait for a render to go through up until when it's done. However, with Unreal, what you do now, oh, there's very orangey hue here, but anyhow, we could correct that. If you want a visual, you look down here, you pop down this little dialog, and here it says high resolution shot. So you click that, and it will give you a high resolution shot of what's on the screen. You can go by the size you're seeing. You can do a double, a triple size, and you press click, and that's it. There, it's done. You open it. Let's see if I click on there. There's my high resolution image, so I can now double click it. It was as quick as that to take a screenshot. It's basically like a screenshot of it, but it's of 3 times the resolution. There's no waiting time for rendering stuff, etc. It's as instant as that. My picture viewer sometimes gives me a bit of uphill. Let's just see if I maybe just open this in another program. Yeah. Open with, let's use Google Chrome. Okay. Where are we now? Am I zooming? Okay, there's some sort of defects on this surface here. Okay, which we've got to kind of correct. But all things being equal, there are a bit of artifacts here, and it's probably because of my settings that I have. But all things being equal, we've got a high-res image, or maybe I should just see it. Just open this with. Okay, where do we go? It can't be this difficult just to find open with. Let's go Fast Stone Viewer. Okay, the point I'm making is if you do spend time to get the settings right, like this texture here came in from SketchUp and it's really not the best texture. I haven't done any editing on it. I wouldn't use these kind of textures, so it is a terrible texture. But basically we're sitting with a 3 times resolution picture of the area. And can you see this artifacts here? That's all based on how you set your render settings. So you've got to spend a bit of time in it. So bottom line is you're able to get a grab of visual in one quick click and a high resolution picture. And in the other programs, you've got to sit and wait for it to render. So if you're wanting to find a render engine that's going to be free of charge for SketchUp, then I think this is one of the great options that you can use. Where you will spend a little bit time in is starting to understand how to get the higher quality. These artifacts, these reflective artifacts here, those things all get sorted out as you sit and do the parameters, the anti-aliasing, and all those sort of stuff. So that's what you've got to spend time in getting to know. It's not something that I necessarily can teach you at this stage. The lighting outside is all over bright, the tones is all orangey and so forth. So all those things being cleaned up and all things being equal, I'm truly satisfied with having a quick visual like this for somebody. So I can set this thing up quickly, the person says, listen, give me 3 other views. It's basically we can go in and I can do a turn here. Like I can go, okay, which view? Maybe you want to do a view of this side if there was furniture or something here. So that's all you do. You go boom, boom. Okay, let's just do the size, one of the size. That's it. There we've got, is this the second one? Okay, thank you very much. Let me go to my Faststone, and there we've got an image. Okay, so this is now that particular view. Now I've got a render from this side, a render from other side. And of course, if all your textures and stuff have been edited and all that, they will look realistic. Interesting thing, if you see somebody busy and they're busy putting lighting and textures and all the things onto it, when you see it in the first place, it looks very raw, it looks, terrible. But once all the textures and the lighting and occlusions, ambient occlusions are put in, the things start to look like photorealism. So don't get too concerned that it's not looking like a photo at this stage. It's not intended for me to go through that process with you, just to show you that the ability to get quickly through from an image like this to the next side image and so forth. So you can do 50 different screen grabs of different sections, high resolution, and it doesn't take a second to render. It's all in real time. So I hope that inspires you to kind of get the workflow from SketchUp into Unreal Engine as your render engine. I think it's still good practice to have like a Thea render in SketchUp, because there's certain things you just want to render, do a quick render, get a visual and use there. Because there is a bit of setup time in Unreal. But the more familiar you get with it, the more you use it, the quicker it will be to get that effect. Okay, so I hope that's been of value to you. And yeah, I don't think anybody should have an excuse if they don't have any dollars to buy a render engine for SketchUp. They can just bring their models across here and use these few principles to at least have a foundation to start off with doing your renders going forward. And remember, all these textures are brought in from SketchUp. I still would recommend that you retexture everything in Unreal, because Unreal has so much potential when it comes to materials and textures and realism and all that sort of stuff. And here we haven't even added normal lights or fixtures or anything here for other effects. So it's incredible. So I encourage you to be motivated to start doing more of your renders into Unreal, and then share with me when you find some nice little tips on which things work for you to get closer to photorealism. Okay, so hope you found some value in this, and enjoy the rest of the day, and God bless you.